March 19th, 1899. Volume 2. The devil can speak about virtue, but he cannot infuse it in the soul. This morning as Jesus made himself seen, I was afraid it might not be truly Jesus, but the devil that wanted to deceive me. After I made the usual protests, Jesus told me, "Daughter, do not fear, for I am not the devil. Besides, if he speaks about virtue, it is a colored virtue, not true virtue, nor does he have the virtue of infusing it in the soul, but only of speaking about it. And if sometimes he shows he wants to make the soul practice a little bit of good, she is not persevering, and in the very act in which the soul does that little bit of good, she is listless and agitated. I alone have the power to infuse myself in her heart, to make her practice virtues, and suffer with courage, tranquility, and perseverance. And then, when has the devil ever gone in search for virtues? His hunting is for vices. Therefore do not fear and be tranquil. March 19th, 1901, Volume 4. Jesus explains the easiest and most profitable way to suffer. This morning as I was all oppressed and in suffering, much more so because of the privation of my sweet Jesus, after much waiting, I saw him for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, the true way of suffering is in not looking at whom the sufferings come from, or at that which one suffers, but at the good that must come from those sufferings." This was my way of suffering. I looked neither at the executioners nor at the suffering, but at the good I intended to do by means of my suffering, also for the very ones who gave me suffering. And looking at the good that was to come to men, I disregarded everything else, and with intrepidness I followed the course of my suffering. My daughter, this is the easiest and most profitable way to suffer, not only with patience, but with unconquered and courageous heart. March 19th, 1902, Volume 4. Creatures have corrupted themselves of their own will. I continued to have remorse, yet the Lord kept coming and wanting to repair for what I had done the day before. I told him, "Lord, let's go see what creatures are doing. They are your images. Don't you want to have compassion for them?" And he, "No, I do not want to go. They have corrupted themselves of their own will, and I will permit that what serves as their nourishment will serve them as infection. Do you want to go to help, to comfort, to do something? Go ahead. I won't." So I left my beloved Jesus, and I went into the midst of creatures. I helped someone to die well. Then I saw where the infected air was coming from and did various penances in order to move it away. And then I came back. Blessed Jesus continued to let himself be seen, but in silence. March 19th, 1903, Volume 5. True love is that of one who, in suffering for God, wants to suffer more. This morning I saw the confessor all humiliated, and also blessed Jesus and Saint Joseph, who said to him, "Get down to work, for the Lord is ready to give you the grace you want." After this, on seeing my dear Jesus suffering as in the course of his passion, I said to him, "Lord, did you not feel tiredness in suffering so many different pains?" And he, "No, on the contrary, one suffering would ignite the heart more to suffer another one. These are the ways of divine suffering." Not only this, but in suffering and operating, it looks at nothing but the fruit it receives from it. In my wounds and in my blood, I saw nations saved, and the good that creatures would receive. And my heart, instead of feeling tiredness, felt joy and ardent desire to suffer more. So this is the sign that what one suffers is participation in my pains, that there is suffering united with joy to suffer more, that in operating one operates for me, that one does not look at what he does, but at the glory he gives to God and at the fruit he receives. March 19th, 1914, Volume 11. The soul who diffuses herself in the divine will forms the delight of the most holy Trinity. It seems that blessed Jesus wants to speak about his most holy will. I was diffusing myself throughout all his interior, in his thoughts, desires, affections, in his will, in his love, in everything, when Jesus told me with infinite sweetness, "Oh, if you knew the contentment that one who does my will gives me, your heart would break with joy." See, as you were diffusing yourself in my thoughts, desires, and so forth, you were forming the delight of my thoughts, while my desires, fusing in yours, were playing together with them. Your affections, united to your will and to your love, running and flying into my affections, into my will and into my love, were kissing one another, and pouring like a rapid rivulet into the immense sea of the Eternal One. They were playing with the divine persons, now with the Father, now with me, and now with the Holy Spirit. Then, wanting to give no time to one another, we play with her, all three together, making of her our own jewel. This jewel, our delight, is so dear to us that we keep it with jealousy, ad intra, in the intimate part of our will. And when the creatures embitter us and offend us, in order to be cheered, we take our jewel and we amuse ourselves together. March 19th, 1918, Volume 12. Jesus feels nausea over the disunion of priests. Continuing in my usual state, my lovable Jesus came, all afflicted, and told me, "My daughter, what a nausea I feel over the disunion of priests. It is intolerable for me. Their disordered life is the cause for my justice to allow my enemies to be over them and to ill-treat them. The evil ones are already about to attack, and Italy is about to commit her greatest sin, that of persecuting my church, and of dirtying her hands with innocent blood." And while he was saying this, he showed our allied nations devastated. Many places disappeared, and their pride floored. March 19th, 1920, Volume 12. To live in the divine will is to live without one's own life, without personal reflections. It is the life that embraces all lives together. I was lamenting to my always lovable Jesus, saying to him, "How you have changed! Is it possible that even suffering is no longer there for me? Everybody suffers. I am the only one unworthy of suffering. It is true that I surpass everyone in wickedness, but you, have pity on me. Do not deny me at least the crumbs of the very much suffering which you, in abundance, do not deny to anyone. My love, how horrifying is my state! Have pity on me, have pity." As I was saying this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior, telling me, "Ah, my daughter, calm yourself, otherwise you will hurt me, opening deeper gashes in my heart. Do you perhaps want to surpass me? I too would have wanted to enclose in me all the pains of the creatures. My love toward creatures was so great that I would have wanted no pain to touch them, but I could not obtain this. I had to submit to the wisdom and justice of the Father, who, while allowing me to satisfy for the great part of the pains of creatures, did not want satisfaction from me for all the pains, and this for the decorum and balance of his justice. My humanity would have wanted to suffer so much as to put an end to hell, to purgatory, and to all chastisements. But the divinity did not allow it. And justice said to my love, "You wanted the right of love. It has been granted to you. I too want the rights of justice." I resigned myself to the wisdom of my Father. I recognized it as just, but my moaning humanity felt the pain of it, because of all the pains which had to come to creatures. In hearing your laments for not suffering, I hear the echo of my laments, and I run to sustain your heart in order to give you strength, knowing how harsh this pain is. However, know that this is also a pain of your Jesus. I resigned myself for love of Jesus also to not suffer, but the torment of my heart was most bitter. Many things wandered through my mind, especially regarding what he had told me on the divine volition. It seemed to me that I could not see the effects of his word in me. And Jesus kindly added, "My daughter, when I asked you if you would consent to live in my volition and you accepted, saying, 'I say yes, not in my will but in yours, so that my yes may have all the power and the value of a yes from a divine volition,' that yes exists and will always exist, just as my will exist. Therefore your life has ended. Your will no longer has reason to live for itself. This is why I told you that, since all creatures are in my will, you come in the name of the whole human family, to place at the foot of my throne, in a divine way, the thoughts of all in your mind, in order to give me the glory of each thought. In your gaze, in your word, in your action, in the food you take, and even in your sleep, those of all. Your life must embrace everything. Don't you see that sometimes when you are oppressed by the weight of my privation, and something escapes you of what you do, and you do not unite all the human family together, I reprimand you? And if you don't listen to me, afflicted, I tell you, if you do not want to follow me, I will do it by myself. Life in my will is to live without one's own life, without personal reflections. It is the life that embraces all lives together. Be attentive in this, and do not fear. March 19th, 1924, Volume 16. The light of the divine will is the passport in order to penetrate everything and everyone, heaven and earth, and to multiply many lives of Jesus for as many existing creatures and for as many acts as they do. I was fusing myself in the immense sea of the divine will, and my sweet Jesus came out from within my interior in the act of blessing me. Then, after he blessed me, he surrounded my neck with his arms and said to me, "My daughter, I bless your heartbeats, your affections, your words, your thoughts, and even your tiniest movement, so that through my blessing all of them may be invested by a divine virtue, in such a way that in entering my will, they may bring this divine virtue with them by virtue of my blessing, and may have the power to diffuse in all, to give themselves to all, and to multiply me for each one, in order to give me love and glory, as if all had my life within them. Therefore enter into my will, penetrate between heaven and earth, go through everyone. My will is most pure light, and this light contains all-seeingness, the passport in order to enter the most intimate hiding places, the most secret fibers, the abyss of depths, and the space of the highest heights. This passport does not need a signature to be valid, but it contains this power within itself, because being light, which descends from on high, no one can hinder its step and entrance. And then it is king of all, and it has dominion everywhere. Therefore place your thoughts, your words, your heartbeats, your pains, all of your being, in circulation within my will. Leave nothing within yourself, so that by the passport of the light of my will, and by my divine virtue, you may enter every active creature, and you may multiply my life in each one of them. Oh, how happy I will be in seeing that the creature, by virtue of my will, fills heaven and earth with as many lives of mine for as many existing creatures. So I abandoned myself in the supreme volition, and going around with it, I made my thoughts, my words, my reparations, and so forth, flow in each created intelligence, and in all the rest of human works. And as I did my acts, Jesus was formed. Oh, how beautiful and enchanting it was to see many Jesuses everywhere, the passport of the light of the eternal will passed. Then I found myself inside myself, and I found Jesus, who was clinging to my neck, and squeezing all of me. It seemed that he was making feast, as if I were the cause of the multiplication of his life, to give him the honor and the glory of as many divine lives. So I said to him, "My love, it does not seem real to me that I could multiply your life, to give you the great honor of as many divine lives. And then you are everywhere. Therefore it is by virtue of yourself that this life arises in every act, and not because of me. I remain always the little child who is good at nothing." And Jesus, "My daughter, what you say is true. I am everywhere, but it is my power, immensity, and all-seeingness that allows me to be everywhere. It is not the love and the action of the creature in my will to make me be everywhere and to multiply me. But when the soul enters my will, it is her love, it is her acts that, being filled with divine virtue, make my life arise, according to how her acts are more or less extended and done. And this is the reason for my feast in seeing that the creature takes of my own and gives me my love, my glory, and even my very life. My contentment is so great that the creature cannot comprehend it while she lives in exile, but she will comprehend it in the celestial fatherland, when she sees herself repaid with as many divine lives for as many as she formed upon earth. March 19th, 1926, Volume 19, How the Most Holy Will of God Eclipses Everything, Even Creation and Redemption, and being life of everything, it will produce greater fruits. I write only to obey and to fulfill the will of God alone. I was thinking to myself, my always lovable Jesus tells me many times that I must be the copy of my celestial Mama, and therefore embrace everything and make up for all, to be able to impetrate the longed-for Fiat, just as the sovereign queen impetrated the longed-for Redeemer. But how can I do this? She was holy, conceived without original sin. I, on the other hand, am one of the littlest and poorest creatures, conceived with original sin, like all the children of Adam, full of miseries and weaknesses. How then shall I be able to follow the flights of the sovereign lady in the divine volition, in order to impetrate upon the earth the so longed for fiat, which my sweet Jesus wants to reign? Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus came out from within my interior, and clasping me tightly in his arms, told me, "My daughter, my mamma was conceived without original sin, so that she might be able to impetrate the longed-for Redeemer, because it was right and decorous that not even the seed of guilt would ever have existence in the one who was to be my mother. She was to be the noblest, the holiest of all creatures, but of a divine nobility and of a holiness all similar to her Creator, that he might find in her so much grace and capacity as to be able to conceive the Holy of Holies, the eternal Word. Many times creatures also do this, when, having to keep precious things and of great value, they prepare most clear vases, and of a value equivalent to the precious things which are to be kept in them. On the other hand, if those are ordinary things and of little value, they prepare vases of clay and of very little value, nor do they have the care of keeping them under lock and key, as they do with the most clear vase. Rather, they keep them exposed. So, from the preciousness of the vase and from the way it is kept, one can know whether the things contained in it are precious and of great value. Now, since I was to receive her blood in order to be conceived in her womb, it was right that both her soul and her body be most clear, and that she be enriched with all possible imaginable graces, privileges, and prerogatives that God can give and the creature can receive. Now, my daughter, if all this happened in my dear mamma because she was to make the longed-for Redeemer descend upon earth, to you also, since I have chosen you for the longed-for fiat, longed for by heaven and by the earth, longed for with great love and yearning by the very divinity, even more, longed for more by God than by men, I was to give you so much grace as not to place the knowledges pertaining to my will in a corrupted soul and body, and not only the knowledges, but the very life of my will, which it was to form and carry out within you. Therefore, making use of its power, even though it did not exempt you from original sin, with its power it repressed the inclination to sin and stood firm over it, that it might not produce its corrupted effects. So in you my will keeps original sin crushed and without life. This was right and necessary for the nobility, the decorum, and the sanctity of the supreme will. If any effects which are not good were present in you, my will would find shadows, fogs, and would not be able to spread its rays of truth like the sun in its full midday, and even less could it form in you the center of the carrying out of its divine life, because my will is so clear and holy that it cannot be, nor adapt itself to living together with the slightest spot. On hearing this, trembling, I said, "Jesus, what are you saying? Is all this possible? Yet I feel so miserable and little as to feel the need of you, of your assistance, and of your presence to be able to continue to live. And you know to what a pitiful state I reduce myself when you deprive me of yourself." And Jesus, interrupting my speaking, added, "My daughter, do not be surprised. It is the sanctity of my will that requires it. What this is about is the greatest thing that exists in heaven and on earth. If in redemption I came to save man, now it is about rescuing my will in the creatures, and therefore making known the purpose of creation and of redemption, the goods which my will wants to give, the life it wants to form within each creature, and the rights which befit it. Therefore, placing a divine will in safety in the midst of creatures is the greatest thing, and my will, known and reigning, will surpass the fruits of creation and of redemption. It will be the crowning of my works and the triumph of our works. And if my will is not known, loved, and fulfilled, neither creation nor redemption will obtain their full purpose and their complete fruit. Creation and redemption came out from within my omnipotent Fiat, and so that our glory may be complete, and the creature may receive all the effects and the goods which they contain, everything must return into our will. Now, who can say how my poor mind swam in the immensity of the eternal will and what I comprehended? But the point that impressed me the most was that the Fiat was to surpass even the good of redemption, with the addition of a terrible reluctance to manifest what is written above, for fear that obedience would impose on me to write. Oh, how I would have wanted to keep silent! But with the Fiat one cannot argue, because in one way or another the victory must always be its own. Then my sweet Jesus, always benign, coming back, told me, "My daughter, it is necessary that you manifest this, not for yourself, but for the decorum and the sanctity which befit my will. Do you think that all the crafting I have done in your soul for 40 years and more has been only for yourself, and for the love I had and do have for you? Ah, no, it has been above all for the decorum of that which befitted my will, so that in coming to reign in you, it would find my crafting, my incessant prayers inviting it to come, the throne of my works and of my pains, on which it might dominate and form its dwelling, the light of its very knowledge, so that it might find in you its honors and its very divine glory. Therefore, my many manifestations about the supreme will were necessary for the decency that befitted it. Now you must know that my will is greater and more endless than redemption itself, and what is greater always brings greater fruits and goods. My will is eternal in time and eternity. It had no beginning, nor will it ever end. On the other hand, though being eternal in the divine mind, redemption had its beginning in time, and was a product of the eternal will. So it was not redemption that gave life to the divine will, but it was my will that gave life to redemption. And whatever has the power to give life, by nature and by necessity, must become more fruitful than the one who has received life. But this is not all. In creation, the divinity issued from itself the shadows of its light, the shadows of its wisdom, of its power. It touched the whole creation lightly with its whole being. So the beauty, the harmony, the order, the love, the goodness of God, which can be seen in the whole creation, are divine similes, shadows of the supreme majesty. On the other hand, my will, not a simile or a shadow of ours, came out into the field of creation as the life of all created things. And so it is life, foundation, support, vivification, and preservation of everything that came out of our creative hands. Therefore, everything is owed to the supreme will. My redemption itself bent its knees before it, to implore it that it would constitute itself life of each act, heartbeat, and suffering of mine, and even of my breathing, so as to let vital aids flow within the creatures in order to save them. My redemption can be called the tree, whose root is the divine will. And since it has produced the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the flowers of all the goods which are present in the church, It must therefore produce the fruit of life, which the root of this tree contains. Moreover, the creation came out from ourselves with the only purpose that our will be known and loved more than life itself. And therefore our will constituted itself life of everything, so as to be fulfilled. All the other things created by us, and even redemption itself, were given as aids in order to facilitate our purpose. So if we do not obtain our primary purpose, how can we obtain our complete glory? And how can the creature receive the good established by us? Furthermore, creation, redemption, and the Fiat Voluntas Tua on earth as it is in heaven symbolize the sacrosanct Trinity. In fact, just as the divine persons are inseparable from one another, so these works are inseparable from one another. Each one gives the hand to the other. Each one helps the other. The triumph, the glory belong to all three of them. And since our will has held the primary place in all our works, creation and redemption remain eclipsed, and as though dissolved within the immensity and the endlessness of the Supreme Will. Our will envelops everything, and keeps the very things done by us as its throne, from which it reigns and dominates. So, if our will is everything, why are you surprised that it will produce greater fruits than our other works? And man will receive that life which he has but does not know, because he keeps it as though compressed, drowned, weakened, while it moans and sighs because it wants to carry out its life, but it is not allowed to do so. Therefore be attentive, because the knowledge of my will shake man, and will be like cement on the woodworm which original sin produced in the tree of the human generations, so that once the root has been strengthened, the creature may allow that life which she had rejected with so much ingratitude to live within herself. March 19th, 1927, Volume 21. How one who does not complete his mission on earth will complete it in heaven. How the mission of the Fiat will be extremely long. The order of the infinite wisdom. I was worried about the health of Reverend Father de Francia. The letters I had received from him were almost alarming. I was thinking about the destiny of my writings, as he had had such great interest in taking them all with himself. Where would they end up if our Lord took him with him to the celestial fatherland? And then his mission for the publication of the knowledges about the Fiat would be without fruit, because it can be said that he has done nothing yet. At the most it can be called the beginning, the will that he has to do the publication. But in order to put out a work so long, who knows how long it takes? And just as for Father it will be a mission without fruit if Jesus takes him away at the very beginning, so it will be for me if I am fortunate enough to go to my fatherland. What will be the fruit of my mission, of having sacrificed myself so much, of spending entire nights writing? Also, the many interests of Jesus will be without fruits, because he himself said it, only when a good is known, then does it bring fruit. Therefore, if they are not known, they will remain as hidden fruits, without anyone receiving the good that they contain. Now, while I was thinking about this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, one who has been given a mission and has only just started it, or has not completed the carrying out of his mission, and in the middle of it I take him to heaven with me, will continue his mission from up there, because he will carry in the depth of his soul the deposit of the good, of the knowledges that he has acquired in life. and in heaven he will comprehend them with more clarity. And in comprehending the great good of these knowledges about the supreme Fiat, he will pray and will make all heaven pray that they be known upon earth, and will impetrate more clear light for those who will have to occupy themselves with them. More so, since each knowledge about my will bring him one more glory, a greater happiness. And as they become known upon earth, his glory and happiness will be redoubled, because this will be the fulfillment of his mission, the carrying out of which he had in his will. And it is right that he receive the fruit of his mission, as it is carried out on earth. This is why I would tell him to hurry, and I urged him so much not to lose time, because I wanted him not only to start, but to advance a great deal in the publication of the knowledges about the eternal Fiat, so that he would not do everything from heaven. On the other hand, one who has completed his mission on earth can say, "My mission is finished." But one who has not completed it must continue it from heaven. As for you, then, your mission is extremely long, nor will you be able to complete it on earth. Until all the knowledges are known, and the kingdom of the divine will is established upon earth, your mission can never be called finished. In heaven you will have much to do. My will, that has kept you occupied on earth for its kingdom, will not let you be without working together with it in heaven. It will keep you always in its company. So, you will do nothing but descend and ascend from heaven to earth, in order to help and to establish my kingdom with decorum, honor, and glory. And this will be for you of great delight, happiness, and highest glory, to see your littleness that, united with my will, has transported heaven onto earth, and the earth into heaven. Greater contentment you could not receive. More so, since you will see the glory of your Creator completed on the part of creatures, the order reestablished, the whole creation with its full splendor, and man, our dear jewel, in his place of honor. What will be our highest contentment, highest glory and happiness without end, as well as yours, in seeing the purpose of creation fulfilled? To you, then, we will give the name of Redemptrix of our will, constituting you mother of all the children of our Fiat. Aren't you happy? After this, I was following the acts of the divine will and not finding my sweet Jesus. I was thinking to myself that he no longer loved me as before, because before it seemed he could not be without me. He would do nothing but come and go. But now he leaves me alone without him, even for entire days. Before, he used to take me to heaven very often, bringing me back to earth to my highest sorrow. Now, everything is over. But while I was thinking of this, moving in my interior, he told me, "My daughter, you offend me by thinking that I no longer love you as before. On the contrary, this is nothing other than the order of my infinite wisdom. You must know that my inseparable mamma also, during her tender age, was more in heaven than on earth, because she was to draw from us the seas of grace, of love, of light, in order to form her heaven within herself, in which the eternal Word was to be conceived and have his dwelling. Then, when this heaven was formed in the sovereign Queen, it was no longer necessary for her to come often to the celestial fatherland, because she had within herself what was there in heaven. So I have done for you. What was necessary before is not necessary today. And besides, what is greater, to possess me in the depth of your soul under the beautiful heaven of my will formed in you, or to visit the celestial fatherland often? I believe it is greater to possess it. Therefore, everything I have done in you earlier, for many years, was nothing other than forming my heaven in you. Once it has been formed, It is right that I enjoy it, and you too must enjoy that your Jesus has his own heaven in your soul. March 19th, 1928, Volume 24, Reluctance in Writing. On Her Littleness. The Return of the Writings. How the divine will lives suffocated in the midst of creatures because it is not known. Grave weight over those who should make it known. How they render themselves robbers. Preparation of great events. My heart and my life, Jesus, here I am again at the great sacrifice of beginning to write yet another volume. My heart is bleeding from the effort I am making, especially because of the conditions in which my little and poor soul finds itself. My love, if you do not help me, if you do not overwhelm me within you, and make use of your power and of your love over me, I can no longer go on, and I will be incapable of writing a single word. Therefore I pray you that your fiat alone may triumph in me. And if you want me to continue writing, do not abandon me to myself. Continue your office of teacher who dictates to my little soul. If then you want me to write no more, I kiss and adore your divine will, and I thank you. And I pray that I may profit from the many lessons you have given me, that I may ruminate on them continuously, and that I may model my life according to your teachings. Celestial Mamma, Sovereign Queen, extend your blue mantle over me to protect me. Guide my hand while I write, that I may fulfill the divine will. So after I finished writing the 23rd volume, and Jesus alone knows with what hardship and what sacrifice, I was lamenting to blessed Jesus that he had been very sparing with his teachings, and that he had made me toil so much to write a few words. So I was thinking to myself, I have nothing else to write, because if Jesus does not speak, I don't have anything to say, and it seems that Jesus has nothing more to tell me. It is true that the story of his fiat is without limits. It never ends, and even eternally in heaven it will always have something to say about the eternal volition. And being eternal, it encloses the infinite, and the infinite has infinite things and knowledges to speak about in such a way as to never end. It is like the sun that, as it gives light, has ever more light to give. Its light is never exhausted. But can it not be that for me he may put a limit to his speaking, and that he may make a pause in narrating the long story of his eternal will? Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior in the act of coming out and told me, "My daughter, how little you are, and it shows how the more you go on, the littler you become. And little as you are, you want to measure our greatness with your littleness, our eternal speaking with your limits in speaking. And little child as you are content with the fact that your Jesus may have nothing more to tell you. You would want to rest and go back to our early amusements, since you have nothing else to do. Poor little one, don't you know that these are brief pauses that your celestial Jesus is allowing for other purposes of his that are not evident to you, and when you least expect it, he will resume his speaking, so important, on the long story of my eternal will." After much struggling and fighting, finally the writings on the divine will arrived here from Messina, and I felt a contentment in me because finally I had them near me, and I thanked my sweet Jesus from the heart. But Jesus, moving in my interior, making himself seen with an air of sadness, told me, "My daughter, you are content, and I am afflicted." If you knew what enormous weight loomed over those in Messina, for while they had interest in keeping them, They kept them sleeping. They were responsible for a divine will, and in seeing the idleness in which they kept them, I allowed that they be sent back. Now this weight looms over those who had them sent back with so much interest. If they do not occupy themselves with them, they too will be responsible for a divine will. And if you knew what it means to be responsible for a will so holy, it means to keep it hampered while it yearns, it longs to have its shackles removed, and they can be removed by making it known. It is full of life. It flows everywhere. It envelops everything. But this life lives as though suffocated in the midst of creatures because it is not known. And it moans, for it wants the freedom of its life. And it is forced to keep the rays of its endless light within itself because it is not known. Now, who is responsible for so many pains of my divine will? Those who must interest themselves with making it known but do not do it. Has my purpose perhaps been to give much news about my fiat without the desired fruit of making it known? No, I want the life of what I have said. I want to make the new sun shine. I want the fruit of the many knowledges I have manifested. I want my work to receive its longed-for effect. In fact, how much have I not worked to dispose you to receive knowledges so important about my will? And you yourself, how many sacrifices have you not made? And how many graces have I not given you to have you make them? My work has been long, and when I would see you sacrificed, I would look at the great good that my knowledges about the Fiat would produce in the midst of creatures, the new era that was to arise by virtue of them. And while suffering in sacrificing you, my tender heart would take immense pleasure in seeing, by virtue of this, the good, the peace, the order, the happiness that my other children were to receive. When I do great things in a soul, manifesting important truths and renewals that I want to make in the midst of the human family, it is not for that creature alone that I manifest this, but I want to enclose everyone in that good. Like sun, I want my truths to shine over each one so that whoever wants it may take their light. Did I not do the same with my celestial mamma? Now, if she had wanted to keep the incarnation of the Word concealed, what good would my coming upon earth have brought? Nothing. I would have departed for heaven without giving my life to anyone. And the sovereign queen, had she concealed me, would have been responsible and robber of all the good and of many divine lives of mine that creatures were to receive. In the same way, they will be responsible and robbers of all the good that the knowledges about my divine fiat will bring, because it will bring many lives of light, of grace, and the immense goods that a divine will contains. Therefore, a grave weight looms over those who should occupy themselves with it, if they continue to keep the sons, so beneficial, of so many truths about my eternal will, idle. And if you, as first, wanted to oppose making known what regards my will, you yourself would be the first robber of so many sons, and of the many goods that creatures are to receive through these knowledges. Then, with a more tender tone, he added, My daughter, the world is as though burned. There is no one who pours upon them the pure water that can quench their thirst. And if they drink at all, it is the cloudy water of their will that burns them even more. Even the good, the children of my church who try to do good, after doing good do not feel the happiness of that good, but rather the weight of the good that brings them sadness and tiredness. Do you know why? Because in that very good, the life of my fiat is missing, that contains the divine strength that takes any tiredness away. The light and the heat of my will are missing, that have the virtue of emptying any weight and of sweetening all bitternesses. The beneficial dew of my fiat is missing, that pearls the actions of creatures and makes them appear so beautiful as to bring them the life of happiness. The ever-springing water of my will is missing, that, while fecundating in a divine manner, gives life and quenches their thirst. This is why they drink, but they burn more. See then how necessary it is that its knowledges be known and make their way into the midst of creatures, so as to offer to each one the life of my will, with the font of the goods it contains. All, even those who are said to be more good, feel that something necessary is missing in them. They feel that their works are not complete, and everyone longs for some other good, but they themselves do not know what it is. It is the fullness and the totality of my divine fiat that is missing in their acts, and therefore their works are as though halved, because only with my will and in my will can complete works be done. Therefore it yearns to be known, in order to bring its life and fulfillment to the works of its creatures. More so since I am preparing great events, sorrowful and prosperous, chastisements and graces, unforeseen and unexpected wars, everything in order to dispose them to receive the good of the knowledges of my fiat. And if they let them sleep without flinging them into the midst of creatures, they will render the events that I am preparing fruitless. What an account will they not have to give me? With these knowledges, I am preparing the renewal and the restoration of the human family. Therefore, on your part, do not place any obstacle, and continue to pray that the kingdom of my divine will may come soon. March 19th, 1933, Volume 32. Nourishment that the Supreme Being gives to the creature that serves to make the soul grow, and to make the divine life grow in the soul. The divine will, depository of everything and of everyone. I am always prey of the divine fiat. Its love is so much that it does not leave me one instant without nourishing my poor soul. But in order to nourish me, it wants me with itself at the mercy of its acts, in order to prepare together the food that it wants to give me. So following its acts, I stopped in the act when God created man, and my highest good Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My blessed daughter, our supreme goodness was not content with loving man, with giving him the whole universe at his disposal, but in order to give outpouring to our intense love, we placed our divine qualities in order to nourish his soul, such that we placed our power, wisdom, goodness, love, sanctity, strength, as his celestial and divine nourishment. Therefore, whenever he came to us, we would make known to him our celestial table in order to nourish him and satiate him. There is nothing that unites and identifies itself with the creature more than food, that arrives at forming his blood, his heat, strength, growth, and life. The same for our divinity. Wanting to nourish him with our divine qualities, it made itself heat, strength, growth, and life of the creature. But this is not enough. This nourishment digested not only made the creature grow all beautiful and holy with the virtues of the nourishments that he took, but it served to make the divine life grow, that does not adapt itself to human nourishments, but it wants its own divine nourishments in order to grow and form its same life in the depth of the interior of the soul. Do you see, can one give greater love, more intimate and inseparable union, then making known our divine being, our immense and infinite qualities, has nourishment in order to make him grow with our likenesses, and then using it in order to administer to him the nourishments so that he does not remain fasting in his soul, and so he is able to say, God nourished my soul, and I, with the food that he gives me, nourish his life and make it grow in me. Love then is content when it can say, you have loved me and I have loved you. What you have done for me, I have done for you. And since we know that the creature can never reach us, we give of ours, and so we equalize the parties, and we remain content and happy, he and us, because true love then feels itself happy and satisfied when it can say, what is yours is mine. And do not believe that this was only for the first man. What we do one time, we continue always. Now we remain completely at the disposal of the creatures. Whenever she unites herself with our will, she loses hers in ours, and she lets it dominate. They are as so many visits that she makes to our Supreme Being. And do we send her away hungry? Ah, no. Not only do we feed her, but we give her of ours so that she has sufficient nourishments in order to always grow as our volition wants her to, and so that no necessary means are lacking in order to make our life always grow more in her. Even more, because on our part, we do not ever let anything be lacking. Rather, we always give in a superabundant way. If anything is lacking, it will always be on the part of the creature, but from us, never. After this, my poor mind continued to lose itself in the divine volition, and my always lovable Jesus added, my blessed daughter, my divine will is depository of everything that has been done by us, and of everything that creatures have done. Not one thought, one word, the greatest works as well as the least works. The steps, the heartbeats, the breaths, the pains, flees from it. It holds everything deposited in itself, such that everything you do takes its place in my will. Nor can you hide anything, because with its immensity it envelops you. With its power, it is actor of everything that you do. And with its divine rights, it is master of possessing, of knowing, and of conserving all the operation of the human generations, and of rewarding them or chastising them according to what they merit. So much is both its goodness and power, that as it does not lose either one star or one drop of light that the sun possesses, or one drop of water of the sea, so it does not lose even one thought of the creature. And even if she wants to lose it, she cannot do it. Its all-seeingness finds her in act in its will. Oh, if creatures could comprehend that a divine will receives on deposit everything that they do and think, how attentive they would be that everything would be holy and upright. And they would call this supreme will as life of everything that they do, such that their acts would not receive one unfavorable judgment, so that they could remain on deposit in the divine volition itself, has its acts and effects that no one would dare to judge, and they would be rewarded as acts of a divine volition operating in the creature. Furthermore, as the divine will is depository of everything and of everyone, so the human will is depository of all her thoughts, words, works, and steps, and so forth. It loses nothing of everything that she does. Rather, they form one single thing with her, and each thought, word, pain, suffered, everything, remains written and sealed with indelible characters. Perhaps the memory does not keep track of everything. It has forgotten many things, but the will hides everything and loses nothing, such that it is the depository of all her acts. Therefore the divine volition is depositary and bearer of everything and everyone. The human volition is individual depository and bearer of itself What eternal triumph it will be! What honor and glory for the one who has thought and operated in a holy way! And what confusion for the one who has deposited in the human volition sins, passions, unworthy works, and will render himself bearer of his own evils. And if the evils are very grave, he will be pasture of the infernal flames, and if less grave, he will be pasture of the purging flames, such that they will purify that soiled human will by way of fire and of pains, but it will not be able to restore to him the good, the holy works that he has not done. Therefore be attentive, because everything is numbered and written. You do not lose, neither you nor us, anything. Even one thought, one word will have its perennial life, and they will be as faithful and inseparable friends of the creature. Therefore it is necessary that you form holy and good friends, so that they can give you peace, happiness, and perennial glory. Fiat. March 19th, 1935, Volume 33. The divine will and the human volition are two spiritual powers. All of man is in the will. How Jesus does not teach or want impossible things. I feel myself as crossing the eternal waves of the divine volition. I feel its continuous motion that as life continuously murmurs, but what does it murmur? It murmurs love, and it gives love to everyone. It murmurs and makes happy. It murmurs and strengthens. It murmurs and gives light. It murmurs and gives life to everything. It conserves everything, and it forms the act of everything. It invests everything. It envelops and hides everything in itself in order to give itself to everything and receive everything. O power of the divine volition, how I would want to possess you as life in my soul, to live of you in order to not know any other life than yours. But oh, how very far I am from it. There is needed so much in order to arrive at living of divine will. But while I thought this, my sweet Jesus, my dear life, surprising me, all goodness told me, "My blessed daughter, tell me, what do you want? Do you want that my will reigns and lives in you as life? If you truly want it, everything is done, because so much is our love and ardent desire that the creature possess our will as life in order to let her live of it, that as her human will truly wants it, so ours fills the human volition with our supreme volition, in order to form its life there, and live in her as in its own center. You must know that the divine will and the human are two spiritual powers. The divine, immense with an unreachable power. The human, little power, but for however little, it has its power. And both being spiritual, the one can pour itself into the other and form one single life. All the power is in the volition, and being spiritual power, it has the space of being able to place inside of its will the good that she wants, and also the evil. In fact, what the will wants, that is what one finds inside of herself. If she wants self-esteem, glory, love of pleasures, of riches, she will find inside of her volition the life of self-esteem, of glory, the life of pleasures, of riches. And if she wants sin, even sin will form its life. Even more, if she wants the life of our will in hers, wanted, commanded by us with so many sighs, if she truly wants it, she will have the great good of possessing our will as life. And if this could not be, the sanctity of living in my volition would be a difficult and almost impossible sanctity, and I do not know how to neither teach difficult things, nor do I want impossible things. Rather, it is my usual way to make easy, for as much as it is possible for the creature, the most arduous things and hardest sacrifice. And if necessary, I place there of mine, in order to have that the little power of her will become sustained, aided, animated by the invincible power of mine, and so render easy the good, or the life of my volition, that the creature wants to possess. And so much is my love, that in order to make it all the more easy, I whisper to the ear of the heart, if you truly want to do this good, I will do it together with you. I will not leave you alone. I will place my grace, my strength, my light, my sanctity at your disposition. We will both do the good that you want to possess. Therefore, not too much is needed to live of my will. The too much is in the volition. If this decides and strongly and perseveringly wants it, already she has conquered mine and has made it hers. Oh, how many things the human volition can enclose! Being a spiritual power that gathers much and loses nothing, it resembles the light of the sun. How many things does the sun not enclose, while one sees nothing other than light and heat? And yet the goods that it encloses are almost innumerable, and one sees that as it touches the earth, so it communicates its admirable goods, and yet one sees nothing other than light. Such is the human will. How many goods does it not contain? If she wants, it can contain love, sanctity, light, reparation, patience, all the virtues, and even her Creator himself. Being a spiritual power, it has the virtue and capacity of containing everything that she wants. And not only does it have the power of containing the good that she wants, but of transmuting herself into the good that it contains. In fact, the human will changes into the nature of the good that she wants, and although she does not do many things that she truly wants, in the will they remain as done. And one sees that on the occasion of doing that good that she wants, possessing the life of it, with promptness, with all love, without any hesitation, she does that good that she wanted to do for so long. Symbol of this is the sun, that finding neither the seed nor the flower, can give neither the good of maturing the seed, nor the good of the color to the flowers. But as soon as it is given it to touch them with its light, possessing the life of it, immediately it gives the maturation to the seed, the color to the flowers. With indelible characters, the human will possesses everything that it does and that it wants to do. And if the memory forgets, yet the will loses nothing. It contains the deposit of all of her acts. Without that it could lose anything. Therefore one can say, all of man is in the will. If this is holy, even the most indifferent things are holy for him. If then it is bad, perhaps even the good changes for him into perverse act. So if you truly want my divine will as life, not too much is needed. Even more, because united to yours, there is mine that wants it. There is a power that can do everything. And as for you, one will see the deeds if in all things you will behave as possessor of a divine will. Therefore be attentive, my daughter, and let your flight always be continuous in the supreme Fiat. End of March 19th. Fiat.